You're tuned in to the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Callender and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go.
It's episode 57 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Kayla Callender, and I'm a mortgage lender.
And I'm Andrew Yagi. I'm a real estate agent.
Hi, Andrew Yagi. How are you today?
Hey, Kayla. I'm doing really good on this beautiful fall day. How are you?
Fall summer day. I'm good. It's supposed to be 85 in Fargo today. 85.
Whoa, crazy.
I have pumpkins on my doorstep, man. Like, this is fabulous. I am fully anticipating for a blizzard next week.
Well, I hope not, because there's some of us who not only work in real estate, but also do a little bit of farming, and there's some crop to be harvested. And in fact, we haven't even really started, at least the Mindat Co-op hasn't started sugar beet harvest, but we're going to start tomorrow night. So kind of looking forward to a good stretch of some cooler temps, even though you're right. In many ways, it's been just really awesome. Having nice weather, getting outdoor projects done.
Yes, it's so nice. And I think when we look at last year, it's like, we barely got any snow last year. It's like, will we see this again? I don't know. Only one can hope.
Time will tell. I thought the old Farmer's Almanac had said that it was going to be a tougher, cold winter. But yeah, we'll find out.
Well, we'll see. But what's new in your world? What's going on with you, the fam?
Yeah. Business? Well, yeah, I guess a lot in some ways, and maybe not a lot in some other ways. Real estate obviously is entering kind of the quieter, season, so to speak, which I think is maybe even a little bit quieter, which we can talk about and actually look at some stats and see what the market's actually doing. Since I think a lot of people out there that listen or tune in are probably curious, hey, what's the market up to? Just because there's been so much happening in the world, between weather, between government, and hey, we have an election around the corner as well. So real estate's been a little bit quieter, but we're still listing properties. They're just not moving quite as quickly. Family wise, we've been trying to get a variety of weekend things in. Actually, Kayla, we were just up in Fargo a little over a week ago. We went. Fargo Air Museum had the Girls in Aviation event at the Fargo Air Museum, and so we buzzed in for that and kind of went, and the girls had a great time, and even got a little ice cream and did some projects. So we had a really great time doing that. But now with harvest ramping up, that has kind of sailed. But yeah, no, we've had a really great fall. How about you?
That's awesome. Yeah, we just took our pontoon out. So it was just so gorgeous. Like, we didn't want to take it out at all, but we took that out. I drug my husband to a pumpkin patch twice so I could decorate my porch. Typical girl. But other than that, it's gala season a little bit this time of year, and then again in the spring. But we've got the Bio Girls Gala tonight. So I looked at my calendar and it's already filling up. We got the Homeward Animal Shelter has their Wags, Whiskers, and Wine event. We've got the FM Wine and Dine. Like, there's so many activities going on that I'm like, I feel like this last quarter, it's traditionally slow in mortgage. We'll see. But it is already just getting packed with events, and it's fun. But I'm like, it's going to be 2025 soon. It's crazy.
I know it is. We're already, into the last quarter, and I always get excited when it's a new month. So, you turn the page and it's like, hey, a new month, new opportunities. But boy, we're already a third of the way through October.
I know.
And I know it's just going to fly by. So I'm not, like I said, we've been doing a lot of things and not wasting a moment of it. But I'm excited to close the year out. I'm really excited to see what 2025 has in store in many different areas, but especially in real estate, because, we've seen just kind of I'll almost call it a stop and go market. I mean, the market, there's been a good amount of activity, but we've had, kind of some lulls based on rates. And then, hey, the Fed cut rates, more recently, and we saw a lot of people get excited, but then kind of scratching their heads, Kayla, because they were expecting rates to drop another 0.5%. And then again, people didn't realize that, oh, wait, the Fed already kind of had that priced in. And so, a few more people may be re-entering the market, but rates maybe not quite low enough. And then all of a sudden rates jump back up a little bit. What are rates doing, Kayla?
When we talk about rates, we think about, what we hear, right? We hear the Fed cut rates 0.5%, right? And what people don't realize is that doesn't necessarily mean that mortgage rates are getting cut. Now, do they follow one another? Yes. Did we see mortgage rates decline? Yes. But we saw mortgage rates decline because the market had already anticipated for this Fed cut. So in September, Andy, we saw mortgage rates decline, but in the last little bit, they've gone up. So today, a 30-year average is roughly right around 6.5, 6.62. But the question is, why did rates come up a little bit? I thought they went down. I've got clients asking me constantly, Kayla, I thought that rates were down. What do you mean? Well, the jobs report that came out had, I believe it was 254,000 jobs. So it was performing better than anticipated. And so what a lot of people say is like, I don't see there's that many jobs. I've got friends that are still looking for jobs. But when we look at it, I'm looking at this stat here. It says that when we looked at the report, it showed the jobs report. It showed that employers with 50 employees or less are on the decline, and 1 to 25 employees has been on the decline for 5 months. But government jobs is what jumped in September, about 78,000. So when we look at that, no matter which way you look at it, when that report comes out, that has been one of the reasons that we saw an increase in interest rates. So today, a good average is about 6.62 for a 30-year. And we're seeing a lot of activity, Andy, but a lot of people are still waiting to see what happens. And that's okay. But, no matter who gets into this presidential role, whatever policies they have, I can't help but think we're not going to see immediate change. So people that are waiting, I think if you want to wait, they might be waiting a lot longer than just till November.
Right. Well, and even I had picked up this piece as I was reading as well, on everything that's been happening in the market in the jobs report, and just kind of talking about, with that 250,000 gain, the fact that investors have been trying to game out whether the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates by another 0.5%, following last month's, similar reduction, and whether or not that's going to happen or not. It would be great to see, but what's your prediction, Kayla? Do you think we're going to see another 50 basis point cut?
There's been a lot of talk that we might not. Let me see. Actually, I was looking at this stat. There is according to CME, I wrote this down. There is a 91% chance they feel that we'll see a quarter cut. So we might not see what we thought. And truthfully, it doesn't surprise me if this is what we're seeing with the economy, unless there's some type of, big economic, data that comes out, maybe a quarter. And that doesn't mean mortgage rates will drop a quarter. It means the Fed is cutting the rates a quarter, and that impacts things like HELOCs and credit cards. So if you have a HELOC at 8.5% and the Fed cut rates by half, you're going to see your HELOCs probably at 8% now. So something to think about, but I've seen just a lot of buzz and stimulation and questions and conversations about refinancing. People are ready to go, but a lot are just holding on to see what happens if they can get a lower rate.
And I had seen an article as well, just talking about that, we really need to see the rates drop below 6% and kind of sustain below 6%. That's really going to be the key threshold for a lot of buyers to re-enter the market. It's been really interesting working with a number of sellers, and we're still listing quite a number of properties. We've kind of cleared out the majority of our real serious buyers, and we have some that we're still working with, but some that are kind of hemming and hawing a little bit and not quite sure what they want to do. I think just the uncertainty and kind of taking a wait and see approach as well. But it's been interesting, and sometimes I think even internally trying to be realistic in our own minds, even though we work in this every day, Kayla. There's still a part of me at least that I want it to be like a couple of the last several years where the market's been crazy, and I still kind of expect like, hey, we're going to list this house and it's going to fly off the shelf, and it doesn't quite. And like I said, we'll talk about some stats in just a little bit to kind of personify that. But I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think that there's just a lot of buzz, a lot of conversation. but I feel like this time of year it gets to be slow anyway. So in my gut, I feel like it's going to be slower than we thought. We heard refi boom. I'm getting tons of scripts and messaging and planning and what to do with your CRM and how to prepare for refinancing. But I don't know that we're going to see this huge uptick in activity like we maybe anticipated when when the Fed news came out. I think we're going to see it maybe be a quieter Q4. Not to say it will, but in terms of activity of like actually moving forward, not just conversations and applications or, hey, Andy, I want to list my house. It's here's we're going to take action. I feel like most people might do that in January, February, and into spring. But that's just my predictions, and I've only been wrong once in my life, so I could be wrong again.
I'm sure your husband would agree with that wholeheartedly. Well, I was looking, and this is back, kind of when rates dropped, but there was, kind of a home loan surge, and more refi activity, and obviously, like you say, you're starting to see a little bit, but yeah, a lot of people probably are going to wait.
Yeah, it seems like that. I think people just get busy too. They don't want to be going to Thanksgiving and dealing with Christmas and Christmas concerts and all these things and try to sell their home and buy a home. And it gets to be a lot on people and it's stressful. And so I feel like it just could be slower than we anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kayla, I think, a lot of people are, again, we keep thinking, and I like to think, and I know you like to think in terms of goals. And so I always talk about real estate in terms of like, hey, we're here to help you reach your goals, because everybody has a goal, whether they want to call it a goal or not. But, there's something that's causing a stir or causing some, desire for a change. And, in past episodes, we've talked about, just historically, like in the last, 75 years, like in the 1950s, I think it was an average of 250 square feet per person is what made up an individual's home. People also had larger families. Now today it's like 1,500 square feet on average per person, or over 1,000 at least. And I kind of came across an interesting article the other day because prior to the pandemic, I think we saw people were starting to desire smaller homes than perhaps they had in the 90s, just as preferences changed. And then we saw the pandemic come, more people working from home, and all of a sudden that changed drastically and people wanted more square footage. So I had actually found this article the other day, and this is just kind of a little snippet of it, referring to us as a nation of homebodies. And so this recent study the New York Times provided showed Americans are spending notably more time at home, a trend that started long before the pandemic. If you look, this goes back to 2004. It increases. We know why it increased there. But again, looking at that and just the fact that people are looking at their homes, so much differently, as we kind of evolve as a society.
It's so true. And seeing hybrid work and seeing individuals like, doing things in their home more so, from having a gym to, hosting, to so many people, I think with COVID realized, wow, I need to have XYZ. And they were doing remodels and they were making sure when they were purchasing a new home that it functioned basically for them to be there all the time. So it is no surprise to me that we see that. But as our clients are searching for homes, it is more important now than ever that it has all the features or things that they want, because we know they're going to be spending more time there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, without a doubt. Well, we're even rethinking, my family, just as our girls are growing, and, hey, could we make do with our house? Yes, we absolutely could. But there are a few pieces. And if we're going to be around here, for another 16, 18, 20 years at least, perhaps we want to make some changes. And so we're kind of pondering that. I know, how many years ago was it that you guys built a new house?
4 years ago. Yeah. Okay. 4 years ago.
And I'm sure you put a lot of detail and a lot of thought into that to build the perfect house. But I'm sure there are maybe some things now in hindsight you'd maybe change.
Oh yeah, a lot of things I would change. I always joke that my home office is at the front of the house, and I have 4 dogs. And obviously, like if I'm at home, they're really quiet. They don't do much until UPS or FedEx comes to my front door, and then they go crazy. So I always have to be very cognizant of, what am I doing? Who am I talking to? Am I on a podcast? And just think about that. But there's just so many things that we did that I'm so glad that we, did up front. and there's other things that you just don't know until you're in the house. You just don't know, but it just allows you to kind of prepare for the next one.
Mhm. Absolutely. So
Mhm.
there will be a next one for the Calendar family at some point?
Probably where we live, it was really quiet, and then it got really busy by some commercial buildings coming up, and so we have a lot of activity on the road by our house. So it's just went from quiet to a little noisy. So you never know, but I don't think I can convince my husband for at least probably 5 years. So
Mhm. Gotcha. Well, we'll see. Well, for those that are looking, Kayla, I think especially this time of year, and actually more than even last year, we've seen kind of some interesting things happen in the market. In that
Mhm,
now, there's more inventory out there than there was a year ago.
mhm,
I was just pulling up from the MLS some stats, and so this is for the Fargo area.
mhm.
So last October there were about 370 active listings. This year about 434. So that's another 65 homes to pick from.
Good. Yep.
So for those that are out there looking, again, more options, which it's great for consumers to have options and choices.
Okay.
The slight negative might be the median list price last year, 355. Now we're seeing 399. So definitely, climbing up there.
Mhm.
Absorption rate, and again, this is basically looking at how many months supply of homes do we have available. And so in Fargo last fall, 3.28, we're up to about 4. So that means
Mhm.
homes are sitting a little bit longer. It goes hand in hand with that more inventory as well. And days on market, kind of the interesting thing is, in the Fargo area, kind of about the same. Homes are sitting on the market on average about 36 days before they go under contract or are pended.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of interesting as well.
Mhm.
So not all that much slower in your marketplace and my more immediate marketplace in Fergus Falls. We actually have less listings on the market right now. A year ago we had
Mhm. Yeah.
53. We've got 49. List prices last year about 225 was median, 264 now. Absorption rate 2.2 to 2.23, about the same. And again, a 6-month market, Kayla, would be a balanced market, meaning that it doesn't favor a buyer or a seller. Anything less than 6, we know, is favoring a seller. Anything more favoring buyers. Days on market, though, in our marketplace, very, very similar, 39 days versus 27 last year. So what do you make of those stats?
Well, I really don't know what to think about it, but I do know in Fargo there's a lot of new construction. So I think too, a lot of times those aren't listed. That's not, inventory you may see. And I see a lot of new construction. And the reason I bring that up is, there could still be people in the market that are building and buying. And it's not even noted that there's inventory out there. Technically, if they're building, that's their inventory. So I think that Fargo's got a good market for that, and people are continuing to still build. Um, but it also doesn't surprise me. It's not a huge swing in any direction per se. I just feel like we're in this like holding pattern. It feels like where we're just kind of, it's a little better here, a little better there, but it just feels like everything's a little flat and like we're just waiting. That's how it feels.
Yeah, right,
What do you
right.
think?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same. I think, again, a lot of people, like even some of the sellers I'm working with, are like, oh, the market's so slow. Why am I not having more showings? And again, when we've seen what we've seen, it is easy, to think that too. But when you look at the statistics, it's not really that far off, with the exception of your market having quite a bit more inventory. And our biggest problem is that nobody has done any real appreciable home development in the last 20 years. But we're starting to see a few of the Fargo builders come down and build for people. Like I think Jordals are building a property, and I think
Nice.
the Leslie's, what company is theirs?
Heritage, is it?
Heritage, yeah, they're building one as well in town. And actually, Kayla, we're getting into some new housing development too. We're
Oh
kind of
boy.
sampling things within our office. So this is actually, we're a little bit further away. This was a couple of days ago, showing kind of the foundation. We're building kind of a slab on grade 3-bed, 2-bath. 1,350 square foot home with a 2-cell attached garage, and working to keep the price point under 300,000,
Wow.
just to kind of test out the local market, the contractors, build some relationships, the regulatory environment, and then we already have our sights set on, hey, if this goes well, which we know it will, we're going to find a way to, maybe we can build 5 or 6 next year.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing. And is it in a nice location? Like, where is it at?
Well, this particular lot is kind of in an established neighborhood. It's kind of an old city infill lot, but it's close to one of the elementary schools, and actually is in a nice spot of this residential neighborhood. So
That's
um,
awesome.
we think it'll be pretty attractive, and well, somebody will call it home eventually. But
Mhm.
yeah, so we're doing what we can to kind of help with things like that.
A little bit more inventory and a little bit more
Yeah.
income stream, maybe. You never
One
know.
at a time. I hope we make some money on the house, because it's I won't say it's a lot of risk, but it's enough risk. So we'd hopefully like to
Mhm.
earn something off of it, but mostly we're just trying to figure it out and seeing what we can do for the community too.
I love that. Are you seeing, speaking of like inventory, are you seeing a lot of offers non-contingent on the sale of their home where people are like, hey, I might not sell my home. It might not go as quickly. Are you seeing a lot of activity with that on a pre-approval letter or offer?
We're seeing it's kind of a mixed bag, I would say, in our market. I mean, there are some clients that we've worked with who, I mean, they're in fantastic shape, and yeah, they don't need to sell in order to buy. They may have a home to sell, but they don't have to do it in order to buy. But I also do have a number of them that they do need to sell in order to buy, which actually the market right now, kind of this holding pattern, like you refer to, puts them in a much better spot, because I'm not so certain that come spring, it's going to be as easy to do something like that. I think that, if rates do drop, which I predict they will, I think it's going to be a more competitive housing market in the spring.
I agree. I'm seeing a few people that they could go non-contingent and they're like, I don't want to risk it because we're going into a slower season just with winter. But also if they aren't confident their house will sell, no one wants to have two mortgages. So
Mhm.
I'm seeing a little bit of both, but mostly people are kind of leaning against that option. So I was
Yeah.
just curious what you saw.
Yeah. No, great question.
I love that.
Awesome. Well, Kayla, I think we've kind of covered the gamut when it comes to getting caught up on real estate and market stats in kind of a new month, and kind of breaking down mortgage rates. So I think that puts a wrap on episode 57. Great connecting. We'll do it again next week, and I hope that you have a great rest of the week, Kayla.
I will if you will.
We'll see you.
Bye.